Hello, my friends. Welcome to Moral Panic with me, Christian and Paul. I am Christian Watson. This is my host, Paul LeCrone. Moral Panic is my weekly show, our weekly show, rather, where we tackle culture, society, philosophy issues, and with a great deal of pensiveness and from a sort of multifaceted angle. Paul, how are you doing today, Paul?
I'm doing well. I'm doing awesome. Good to see you.
Yes, good to see you too. And now, of course, many of you who are fans of our fledgling show may realize that we really don't do these shows on Zoom. We did our first show on Zoom. I think we did our second show on StreamYard, and every other show since then on StreamYard, because having the live dynamic to our shows is very, very, very important. Having said that, this has been a very busy week for me, and next week's gonna be even more busier. So we may have to do this again next week even, but I am dedicated to making sure the show is out there and that you guys can listen to it and you guys can enjoy the show. So just bear with us, and if this new format's a little bit odd, that's perfectly fine. You'll get used to it. It's not going to stay around forever. It'll be a fleeting moment in the history of this production. Our topic today, though, is about the comparison trap.
Trap. Good one. A good trap.
So many
good trap because we all fall into it.
Yeah. So many of us have a tendency to weigh ourselves against other people, whether it's naturally, whether it's unnaturally, whether it's, just us reflexively seeing someone with something that looks very nice and saying, oh, wow, and then eventually calibrating that thought to mean, oh, I don't have this, or whether it's us intentionally looking for people who have more stuff than us or who are doing better than us to compare yourself so you can be as good as them or better than them. Whatever desire that urge arises from, whatever desire that action arises from, the truth is it is an endemic part of the human experience. It's inescapable. It's been this way for centuries. And in some ways, I think comparisons are useful. But in this age of social media existence, this digital existence in which we are bound to filtered pictures and numbers on a screen, which give us validity and apparently give us more justification in our beliefs than people who don't have these things, according to some folks. It's very hard to wrangle with all of this. It's very difficult to wrangle with all of this. So we're going to deal with it today. We're going to try to wrangle with it. I'm going to be very honest with you guys. I have dealt with this. I am dealing with this right now, actually. And, I think Paul may have dealt with it in the past, or I don't know. Maybe he'll tell us that he'll speak for himself. But, hopefully this episode will stand as a sort of gift to all of you to recognize your potential and your value for what it truly is. So without further ado, Paul, what do you think about my opening monologue there?
I thought that opening monologue was great, and I think my monologue is going to pale in comparison to yours, because we are always comparing ourselves to other people. Even and you mentioned earlier in that wonderful monologue that questioning whether or not I have experienced the comparison trap in my life, and I would say I would be a complete liar if I said, no, Christian, I have not dealt with the comparison trap in my life. I don't think anybody is safe from the comparison trap unless they're just a complete narcissist. I think everybody deals with it. And I can expand on that if you want. I think the comparison idea is something really useful to consider. I think that comparison can lead to one of two things. It can either lead to happiness or it can lead to inspiration. Now I'll stick to unhappiness or inspiration. You get one of the two, and it can lead to unhappiness when you see somebody out there in the world doing something that's sort of close to what you're doing, and you think, wow, they're doing it so much better than I am. My approach stinks. I'm not as good as them, or they're making $1 million, and here I am in some shitty job, and I want to do what they're doing, but I can't, and I might think I don't deserve what they have, that success, or I think that they don't deserve that success, and I want to tear them down because I'm jealous, and that's the unhappiness, and that's very toxic, and it leads to resentment, and it leads to cynicism, which is incredibly poisonous to the soul. So that's the unhappiness part. Now, when I say that comparison can lead to inspiration, what I mean by that is, I'll use myself as an example. So I do freelance video editing, and I've taken my skills as a freelance video editor slash video marketer and condensed that into an online course which people can take. Now I'm bringing that up not to self plug, but to make the point that I saw somebody in my realm of work take their skills as an artist, as a sketch artist, and transform that into an online course to teach people how to draw. And I thought, wow, their work was a lot better than the project that I was working on. And like their copywriting and their design of their project was so much better. And I felt myself getting a little bit unhappy, thinking, wow, their work is so much better than mine. I'm a little bit jealous. And then I stopped myself and thought, well, how can I get inspired by that person's work and use that to up my ante? How can I use that to like give me a boost? Wow, they're so much more successful than I am, but why? Did they work harder at it? Did they think longer on particular problems? Like maybe I should put my head down and actually consider this more seriously. And then I did. And then the project became a lot better. And so that's how the comparison trap wasn't necessarily a trap. It led to me being inspired, and it helped me improve my craft. So you have to be very mindful of it. It comes down to your perception of what you're comparing.
Right. Exactly. I think that's right. But you have to, but okay, using the comparison trap in a constructive way is still a very difficult thing, particularly if what you're comparing yourself to, or you're comparing your work, particularly if what you're comparing to, if something you're comparing to is very deeply emotional and close to you. A lot of people, especially a lot of artists, feel very emotional about their work.
Of course.
Their heart is invested in it. And so when they compare their work to someone else's, it's not just them comparing, a image on a canvas, or a image on a piece of paper, or words on a page. It's them comparing their heart and soul to what they believe is someone who may have expressed their own heart and soul much better than them. And this is the emotional dimension of the comparison trap. And I will be a transparent here. I can be transparent, right, Paul? I will be transparent here.
Yeah.
Being a budding YouTube political commentator and looking at my numbers every single day and looking at the amount of comments I have every single day, I just can't help but notice that there are a lot of other YouTubers who have plenty of more comments, plenty of more likes, plenty of more shares than I do. And it's not just because I'm looking for that. A lot of people like to mention it to me. So, for example, a lot of people that I've met in this platform like to compare me to Gothics a lot. Mm-hmm. And look, I love Gothics. Vanessa, she's a friend of mine. I love her. I love what she's doing. I think that she's a brilliant voice for sort of a common sense approach to many ostensibly complex issues. But what I do not like, and this has nothing to do with her, everything to do with people who are comparing me, what I do not like is that folks try to use her and other people too. Like, and this is, I could compare to people like Jordan Peterson, for goodness sakes.
Sure.
Folks try to use those people as the standard of my value. And if I make a mistake, or if I am not living up to my highest potential, they say, look at that person. Look at how much better they're doing than you, Christian. That's what you need to be, which kind of neglects what I already have. It's why I hate the word potential. I hate the word potential, Paul.
Really?
It grinds my gears.
Really?
Yes, because when someone says, you've got potential, what you're doing there is you're kind of eliminating every single thing they have currently by omission. That's why I hate being told that I have potential. Oh, you have potential. I do? Okay. But what about what I already have, though? What about what I already have? It's frustrating, man. It's frustrating. So this is the emotional dimension of the comparison trap, though. We can't just pretend that this rests in the realm of logic and reason, because guess what? Human beings are multifaceted, multi-motivated creatures. The reason is how we survive, how we understand things, but there are a bunch of subcategories under the umbrella of reason that we use to accentuate our relationship with certain concepts in the world. So, emotions are one of them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I deal with this thing all the time, and it grinds my gears. I know it shouldn't, but it just, it really makes me wonder why certain people prioritize certain people over other people in their praise, in their estimations. So am I going
Yeah, I
off the
think
rails
sometimes
here or what?
no, I think sometimes when people say you have potential, it might sound like something deriding. It might sound like they're deriding what you already have, and maybe that's where the frustration is coming from. It's like they're almost, and I don't want to speak for everybody who's using this phrase because I still think there's some value in the phrase, and this is where we might disagree. Value in the phrase of you have potential, and the phrase, the word potential itself, I think is latent with value, and we don't have to get into that yet. What I'm
Right,
trying to say right now is that maybe sometimes people think that, oh, I'm being kind when I say you have potential, but
right,
sometimes it almost comes across as deriding. You're not quite good enough yet, which I think isn't necessarily a bad thing to say if they acknowledge, like, okay, you can still mature your craft. And when it comes to artists, I think that if you really do care about your craft, you should be practicing it and seeking feedback from either the market, which you could also call your audience, or the fact that, like, if you're
sure,
getting hired to sketch or if you're getting hired to speak, that's like the market
sure,
giving you feedback and they're giving you money to do this thing. That's feedback. Or you get feedback by exposing yourself to, well, I want to take a class. I'm going to improve this skill that might be a talent. Okay, like talent is nothing without refinement and practice and skill. And caring about what you do means that you're going to seek feedback, and sometimes it's going to be harsh feedback, and sometimes it's going to be from feedback from people who really have your best, they want to see you improve. So this ties into potential, and I think that considering where or who is telling you you have potential is really important. And if this is coming from like anonymous YouTube comments, it can be really sour and quite disastrous, and I can feel the frustration. But there's a lot to unpack here because we're touching
right,
on many different avenues
sure,
and
sure. So let
fulfillment.
me let me clarify. Everyone
Sure,
has
sure.
potential to grow, and there are plenty of my followers that I have that have emailed me and are continuing to email me information that I don't know, and it makes me feel good when they do that because guess what? It shows me that they believe in my capacity to grow. So I'm not talking about that class of people,
Okay.
but I am talking about the folks who come along from finding me in other places, and they're like, "Well, Christian, why aren't you more like Gothics? Oh, Christian, you sound a lot like Jordan Peterson. Oh, Christian, you're like a Black Ben Shapiro. Oh, and not all of them mean it derisively. It's not all a derisive thing, right? It's not all a negative thing. Okay, I think I've lost you. Hold on. I think I've lost you. Hold on, I lost you for a
I'm
second.
back.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
sorry. Yeah, I lost you for a second. Yeah. So, folks are like, well, Christian, you should be more like Gothics. Like, Christian, you should be more like Jordan Peterson, or you are Jordan Peterson, or Christian, you're like a Black Ben Shapiro, and all this crap. And it's not really even all derisive. It's a lot of people who can only really understand my style in relation to previous styles. I've been compared to some of the oddest
Oh
candidates,
yeah. Well, this
actual
happens.
justice warriors.
This will happen to everybody.
I don't get it.
Well,
I don't.
I don't get it either.
But when folks say you have potential to me in the
Yeah.
context of what I just said, those statements, that's
Uh-huh.
like saying, well, you need to be more like this person, then you'll be okay.
Of course.
You know why?
Yeah, but they're wrong.
If it's yeah, but okay, if it's someone who genuinely cares about you and your advancement, and they see room for improvement, I take the potential statement differently than if it's someone who simply wants to remake who you are
Of course.
in the image of someone else.
Yeah, and to that I would say ignore those people because they're trying to remake you in the image of somebody else, which isn't what authenticity is
But it's
about.
hard though, because there are some folks who
It
are
is hard.
subconsciously doing it.
Yeah, it's easier said than done, of course.
You know?
It is easier
So
said than done.
and there was this one, I forgot where I read this piece at, but there was this one piece that kind of made this same point. This one piece that kind of made the same exact point that said, well, when you use the word potential, it does kind of make me feel like I don't have everything that I don't have anything good for me going for me right now. And of course, This is largely something by omission. I don't think when people say, oh, you have potential, they mean that you don't have anything right now. Obviously, the evidence of your potential has to be found in what you're doing right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Or else statement is baseless. So obviously they see something, right? So it's not a full sort of neglecting of, but it's just in the environment that we live in right now. Imagine a Roman soldier being told you have potential. Well, he didn't really have the time to think about potential. He had the time to go ahead, get in the gladiators ring, fight, do those trainings, and go off and go to war against the barbarians or whoever the Romans decided to fight at that point in time. Whoever the Romans decided to conquer at that point in time. That was his comfort. That was his, pursuit of excellence. He didn't have time to think about potential. But in this sort of civilized, hyper-civilized, I would say, digitally dominated age,
Yep.
potential means different things because we're coddled too much. Our images that we see, our images of people, our images of excellence rather, are images of people who may or may not be doing anything worthwhile, but the numbers under their name or the pictures in their Instagram profile look pretty nice.
Mm-hmm.
And the praise they're approving, they're saying looks pretty nice.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think the idea of excellence has changed so much throughout human history, and that under the auspices of the digital era, it's becoming weak and emaciated, from what I can see. So potential for what? What do you have potential for these days? That's the question.
Well, I think that
ties into the comparison trap.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake to derive the fulfillment you get out of your life from numbers on a screen. And I think that a lot of people do that.
Though.
And I think a lot of people
do that.
Fall into
exactly.
that trap. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And but also there's sort of a conundrum here, because if you are deriving your income or I do derive a lot of happiness from the conversations I have in your Discord and from my YouTube to me through my content. And I think I want to say the more the merrier, but I think the higher quality conversations I have through my social media outlets, the happier it makes me, because I like having those conversations. But I don't want to derive my happiness from having 100 followers instead of 10. And I have said this like 3 times already, but I'll just repeat it to the audience in case they haven't heard it yet. And I think this is a very useful point to bring up. If you have 10 followers of your podcast and you love doing the podcast, and this is an idea from Michael Malice, that's not a failure. That's success, because 10 people are listening to you and they're enjoying the conversation. They've come to you for your point of view. Now it comes down to being unhappy when you think 10 isn't enough. I want 100. Oh, 100 isn't enough. I want 1,000. It's the same thing with money. It's the same thing with lifting. Oh, I can't be proud of lifting 100 pounds. I need to lift 200 pounds because Joe over there can lift 200 pounds. And I'm a weakling if I can't lift 200 pounds, or I suck if I don't have 100 followers. It's like this glitch in our brain that's really annoying. And like, I wish we didn't have this problem, but there are in fact ways to get around it. If we remember truly if we decide, well, what do I really value in my life? Like, what can't be measured? Okay. Like literally with a number on your social media bio, like time spent with family, time spent with your kids, time spent with your best friends over whatever, a drink at the bar, like a long walk on the beach with your partner, something like that, or just by yourself going on a hike, things that can't be measured, things that are like in some sense unsexy and unpolished, and things we don't show off on social media. So I also do think that social media is very powerful, but again, it just comes down to our fallible human ability to corrupt our appreciation of technology.
Well, let's talk about this though, because this goes to a deeper point, and there are folks who are dealing with this particular issue. I'm not dealing with this issue right now, but there are folks who are dealing with this particular dimension of the issue, the idea of deriving meaning from sort of mass approval. Which is
very narcissistic.
And there's an entire culture, the influencer culture, which lives on places like Instagram and TikTok, which promotes this exact thing.
Yeah.
And in a certain way, the meaning that one can get out of that. Now, when I say meaning here, I don't mean one's internal sense of what's valuable and what's not valuable. I mean how other folks may respond to what someone is doing. Because again, if you have a mind who is already saying that approval is my metric of success, approval is my standard of value, then they don't really have an internal sense of meaning, do they?
No.
That's missing. But, let's say you have an influencer on TikTok and their entire shtick, let's say that I'm not even doing political content, let's say this is doing dances, and their entire shtick is to get folks to like them on TikTok.
Sure.
And they do the silliest dance ever, and they do some risque stuff, and they get shared a lot.
Yeah.
They get a lot of, they get a lot of likes and stuff. The dopamine rush from that kind of stuff really puts an individual on a certain level. It can deceive an individual into thinking they're getting meaning because they are feeling jovial,
Of course.
So how do we handle, this is a deeper question, how should we handle the relationship between what we perceive to be happiness and what actually constitutes what meaning is? How do we handle that?
Well, we can start by considering, is this person on TikTok, I only got 60 seconds of their life. Are they really fulfilled in their life? And I can't know that from a 60-second TikTok video. And then we see, oh, well, this person who uploaded this video on TikTok, they've got like 1,000 hearts underneath their video. Therefore, they must be feeling 1,000 levels of happiness. But we have no idea what's going on in that person's life. And I like to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt in a sort of negative manner and imagine, well, this person, for all I know, this person's grandma could be in the hospital and she just suffered from a heart attack. And maybe this person is making a TikTok video. That's like their way of coping. And it actually does give them happiness. And so who am I to assume that this person is like stupider than I am or for doing like this thing on TikTok? I don't know. I try not to, and I'm not great at doing this because I'm human and we're all susceptible to negative thinking. But lately I've been trying to see people who make content and imagine, or anybody, you can broaden this out beyond just the realm of TikTok. Everybody has their own pocket of hell. Some people use entertainment as a coping mechanism, and I don't necessarily know if that's bad or there's degrees of it. If you're using too much entertainment as a coping mechanism against your pockets of hell, that's unhealthy because you want to confront that hell and confront the psychological aspects of that hell and how you might be able to resolve that little hell or confront it in a psychologically productive manner. Same thing with alcohol and same thing with drugs. And so we don't know what's going on in everybody's lives. Now, the problem with social media, TikTok in particular, is, well, 60 seconds, okay, that's all I need to know to make these assumptions about this person's lives. They're X, Y, and Z qualities. I think that's just the trap we fall into. And I think that's a trap that other people do to us as well. Oh, I'm making these assumptions about person A because they made a 10-minute YouTube video. Therefore, I know everything there is about their life. I think that's a big mistake. And it's a mistake all of us make. I make it all the time too. A family friend of mine whose father had a heart attack and he was in the hospital for having a heart attack. And I had no idea about this until 2 weeks ago, until I found out through somebody else, basically. Okay, I had no idea. But that's my point. Whether we're talking about social media or we're talking about people we pass on the street or people we think we really know, we don't know that there's pockets of hell in these people's lives until we find out ourselves or they tell us or somebody else tells us. So when we look to social media, like 60 seconds is nothing compared to how long it takes to really get to know a person. And that's the promiscuous, poisonous aspect of the comparison trap, because we make assumptions like, oh, this person has everything figured out simply because they're smiling on camera or they're dancing in a TikTok. Well, we don't know what's going on in the background of their lives. We have no idea.
Exactly. And so this part of the comparison trap is really an epistemological problem, right?
Yeah.
This idea that, we start from the presumption, the first principle, that human beings are finite creatures, and it follows from that presumption that our finitude, our limitedness as creatures, will translate to every aspect of our being. The acquisition of knowledge is an aspect of our being, therefore our knowledge is limited. It's a very simple syllogism that follows first principles. And so not only do we not know about the pockets of hell, we don't really know about any other factor in their life that may have contributed to their success. We don't really know about any other factor in their life that may be contributing to their happiness or whatever. We don't know about the multitudes of their being, because everyone contains multitudes, is what Women was so apt to put it, and so can myself. So you really engage in an epistemological error when you compare yourself to someone, watch this, with very limited information, with a very half-baked picture. But again, that's a logical conclusion. There's the realm of the emotion here, though. It's very interesting, because we can have all the logic in the world, and I think that logic is a very important tool here. But if our feelings do not reflect our logical processes, then we're in a tension here, right? There's this tension between, the right brain, left brain, right? There's this tension. So given the source of this epistemological error primarily coming from emotion, is there a way, you think, to counter? Do you fight this beast of comparison on emotional territory, or do you fight it with both logic and emotion? Like, do you use emotions to counter bad emotions and leave logic out of it, or do you bring in logic and then use emotion to counter other emotions? How do you fight the beast? How do you slay the dragon, so to speak?
It's probably both. You can certainly do it through the emotional aspect, and you can run an experiment and try to notice the emotional consequence of having particularly comparative thoughts in which you compare yourself to other people's work or to other people's art or just to other people in general, and be mindful of it. It's the mindfulness aspect of, I am feeling this. What does it actually feel like to feel this? I'm going to sit here and feel this way, which is what mindfulness is about, and think, oh, I don't particularly enjoy feeling this way. Why? Oh, because I feel bad in comparison to what this person is doing with their life. So it's a battle that is fought, I think, on both the cognitive level and the emotional level. Which comes first, I can't say.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a very interesting thought. Yeah, I think that another good tip too, I think that people just need the detox.
Oh yeah.
People need to get rid of some days. I don't do Instagram, Paul. I don't do Instagram. I don't do it. I have an Instagram account up there. I don't take pictures. I don't do it. Because in my opinion, how am I going to get anything deep if I am bound to the realm of sight? There are all kind of different realms to my emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical well-being. The realm of sight, which not even the entirety of the senses, by the way. There's many more senses than just sight. There's touching, smelling. So the realm of sight, which kind of limits the realm of the senses as a whole, and that is going to be put into an entire platform in which people build their entire careers around in some instances. Why would I do that to myself? Why would I limit the capacity of my human understanding and mess around with this stuff? I don't get it. Now, I'm not saying that Instagram cannot be used for good. It can be used for good. But the problem is Instagram is used as a main platform for many people rather than a secondary or tertiary platform for many people. Someone like Jordan Peterson goes on Instagram and does does Instagram TV, IG Live or whatever. That could be good, but it wouldn't be his main platform. His main stuff is his lectures, his books. You've got other forms of nourishment if you want to have more of Jordan Peterson. For a lot of influencers, though, Instagram and that entire culture and the trappings of that culture and the limitedness of those senses, that is their main platform. And that limits them and limits their impact really too. Or the meaningfulness of their impact rather. So I think Instagram is part of the problem. Not inherently, because Instagram helps as a tool, but the Instagram influencer culture. I just read a story the other day. This 21-year-old influencer, she said, I'm gonna die young, man, and I love it. She's a very popular person, and her boyfriend did these very absurd motorcycle things for their Instagram page, and they ended up getting into a bad crash. It killed her, and he's still in intensive care. This happened down in Brazil. Influencer.
Wow.
this kind of stuff and all these challenges that go along with the influencer culture, the knife challenge, the knife game, all this,
Right.
the cinnamon challenge, let's choke my lungs out with cinnamon, dry cinnamon, all this stuff goes into the vain approbation of mass approval. So I think, back to my original point, detox is a good way to get rid of all this stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, take a day out of the week to unplug
Hell,
from
more
social
than a day.
media. Highly productive.
More than a day,
Yeah,
man.
well, some people, yeah, more than a day is useful. Maybe like once a month, do more than a day. 2 days. I think there's a problem when you are trying to seek external validation from other people. Now you have to be aware of, like, well, why am I going on these platforms? Is it to seek validation from other people, or is it because there's something in it that really does fulfill my soul, like deep conversations or what have you? Or Instagram, I don't know how much more time we have left, but Instagram is like useful to a lot of people, like you said, visual artists, it's a visual platform, but it all comes down to the problem of validation. Am I doing it to seek validation, yes or no? If the answer is yes, there could be a problem.
Absolutely. All right, we've got about 3 minutes left.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want a word on this.
Yeah.
Being in the social media sphere, a lot of people who are public intellectuals have to rely on social media sphere, just like people back in the 1700s who were public intellectuals had to rely on newspapers, had to rely on publications. They just have to.
Yep.
They just have to rely
Of
on it.
course.
So it's a matter of looking into the void and not being consumed by it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's what I
Right.
see it as. I see it as doing that. That's sort of not balancing act, but that's sort of resisting act. I don't know.
Yeah, because they're very powerful tools, very,
Yeah.
very powerful tools once you learn how to leverage them. And I think more focus on that is really important instead of trying to figure out how you can be appreciated in the eyes of millions of people you don't know.
Well, influencer culture is built on that, man. That's why I don't call myself an influencer. I think it's a lot of toxic stuff. Anyway, Paul, that's our show for today. It's very abbreviated. Excuse me, guys. I just got a
Yeah.
lot of things to do. Got a lot of things going on. So excuse me that. Paul, do you have anything else to say?
I could go on for another 2 hours. We have a very abbreviated podcast.
My apologies.
On social media, just be wise about who you follow. Be wise about what don't try to be so polished and perfect on social media. It's okay to be imperfect. I think we're all imperfect beings. And I find a lot of resonance comes from seeking people on social media who are okay with showing their imperfections, their vulnerability. There's strength in that. So see, that's what I try to do with my content. Sometimes I fail and think that I'm like a god, but I try to be as openly raw as I can.
All right, guys. Paul, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for
course.
listening to my jaundiced comments about things. I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. Thank
Yeah.
all of you, if you've survived so far on the show. Thank you for listening, and please stay pensive. Bye-bye, guys.